Well, hello everyone. I hope everyone is having a good day today. I know that I am. We are here to do a little discussion, here to talk a little bit about, obviously, Spider-Man. No, away, home. We are currently live streaming as a triple threat on YouTube as well as Twitch, and I am also currently live streaming on Facebook for our first time. This is very new to me, so hopefully y'all will understand if I'm not exactly used to this. As of yet, I am using my green screen, which, it's kind of, it's freaking. There we go. So, yeah, Spider-Man No Way Home. I just finished watching it, and I think it's time we had a sit down and we discussed the movie once I get us a little bit more, well, not you, but me a little bit more comfortable. So, here we go. Now, of course, I knew a lot of the hype. I had planned for it. I was ready for it. I knew what I was going to be getting myself into with the movie. I figured there had been a lot of stuff put up online prior to the movie coming out. So, spoiler wise, pretty much everybody knew what was going to happen. But it didn't make the emotional connections any less real. All right. When things actually came down, when it actually happened, that what you were anticipating came about. Yeah, you weren't surprised that it was happening, but it definitely didn't lessen the impact. We'll get into that a little bit more as we talk a little more on this. I don't want to go too far as of yet because I want to give us that opportunity to get a few people in before we start breaking things down too much. I haven't even had a chance to share our stream, so if you'll bear with me just a moment while I quickly do so, then potentially we could see if we have anyone who is willing and or waiting to come in and chat. So bear with me. Bear with me. Bear with me. This just takes a moment. Yes, it did diddly do. Yeah, this is something that I really don't mind if kids or anything watch this, because while this is a review and we are doing a spoiler thing, we are on obviously our Facebook and everything, and this is Ozpinions, and Ozpinions here, we are family friendly. So bear with me while I share this one more time. Actually, believe it or not, I'm actually going to share it. Guess where? On Facebook. That's right. How did you know? I did because it's me. I do. All right, there we are. There we are. There we are. Okay. So, this pretty much takes place immediately after the events of Far From Home. And pretty much everything that we saw happen at the end of Far From Home is kind of like quickly recapped, and we see that Spider-Man is pretty much public enemy number one. for killing Mysterio. There's a hunt for him. Because his name has been released as Peter Parker, everyone is after him, and the entire thing, because they know who Peter Parker is and they know that MJ and Peter are together, are after MJ now, and he's right there and sees this, so he puts an end to it and takes her away, and they try to hide, but obviously, the entire city is after them, so even though he does manage to get back to Aunt May's place and try to get taken care of, it's not secure. They all end up getting arrested, and ends up getting off. Obviously, Charlie Cox comes in and helps him out, gets them off for the charges, with the exception of potentially Happy, but they never really crossed that line. They just said he would need a really good lawyer, and then of course Matt catches the brick and blah blah. It was really good amount of fan service to bring Daredevil in, and the way they did it stayed true to the character. It gave him that little bit of wisecracky that he had on the Netflix adaptation, but also made him that dark and brooding enough that you knew who he was in the off hours. It wasn't just haha slapstick funny bullshit, which I would have really, if they just did that, that would have been such a disservice to how good Charlie Cox played the character on Netflix, that I'm so glad they didn't attempt that. And they end up moving in with Happy for a time to try to have more security and all that. We see Peter and his friends trying to deal with what's now the court of public opinion, because they're off the hook for what happened, but some people still believe that Mysterio was right and blah blah blah. It basically, really, when it comes down to it, it's a plot furthering device, because really all he's looking to do is wipe people's brains because of it. And they can't show anything really majorly bad happening to any of the characters, so it's kind of more, a little bit more innuendo type thing. So it's like they're getting some kinds of threats. They're having people who are not happy with them. There's a lot going on where, even though they've done everything they could, they can't get into the college that they want, and things like that. It really is a really good way to introduce the idea of him wanting to fix his friends' problems. But ultimately, because he wants so many people to know, he ends up breaking the spell, and it causes that catastrophe that is ultimately what's the impetus for the villains coming over and everything. And he does finally get the idea that, things need to be fixed, but the problem I have is his whole arc of wanting to help all of them, even in the face of everything going on, and the fact that it could destroy the entire multiverse. Right at the very beginning, before he even had any time, he could have just destroyed it right then and there. He could have let Strange do his thing, and it would have been the end of it. But obviously, that can't be done, because you wouldn't have much of a movie then, now would you? So it's very quick on how he catches everybody. The Lizard is already there, already imprisoned. We don't see anything happen with that. We don't see him get captured. We don't see any of the thing for it. Spider-Man ends up bringing in Doc Ock with him and Strange at the same time. He had seen Goblin at that point, and there was a feeling that someone else was around. He was going to go check it out. Wasn't sure who it was. I like the way they explained how Electro's color change happened. I wasn't sure if they were just going to change it up to the yellow that most of us associate with Electro, or if they were just because he was blue in the Amazing Spider-Man movie verse, which again, I really liked all of the different Spider-Man movies throughout. I'm not criticizing one or any other. All I'm saying is I was wondering how they were going to link it in, because in everyone's mind, that was like one of the worst parts about Electro, was the fact that he wasn't comic accurate color-wise, and how would they rectify that? And how they just explain it with being in this reality here. The electricity is different, so that caused a color change. I thought, well, actually being a very simple, I guess if it was a pitch meeting, you would say something like super easy, barely an inconvenience. But, the whole thing of it is, it really did get explained away very simply, and it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. It made enough sense that you're getting, okay, well, he's a different color because the electricity is a little bit different here. It's a multiverse. Things change different from universe to universe, different harmonics, things like that. So it would tend to stand to reason that there would be a little bit change in our electricity from maybe another universe, so therefore the color could cause a different thing. So I like that. It definitely felt very comic booky for an answer to that, and making it look a lot more comic book accurate at the same time. Pardon. Which I highly appreciated, because I do like to have my movies have that kind of grounded realism, but also that flash and panache. I know it's probably kind of a little bit of a oxymoron, but it's just how I prefer my superhero movies. I guess I've been spoiled over the years. And this one does deliver on that, because there's a lot of bright and flash stuff going on. After he's caught all of these multiversal criminals except for the Goblin, he ends up finding out that Aunt May has the Goblin. So he goes to see her, and you wonder, because it's Norman Osborn, and is he the Goblin or is he Norman, and what's going on? Is he... And then you see him stealing the donuts and putting them in his pocket, and you're like, okay, is that just because he's deranged? Is it the Goblin portion of him? What's going on here? How is this going to affect the overarching story here? But you do get that very good pit of unease when you see him walking Norman into the containment area and not having him just in the cell, because regardless of what persona is being put forward, whether it was Norman or whether it was the Goblin pretending to be Norman to try to get where he was, even when it is the Goblin, he's very persuasive. He always has been. That was one of the leading things about the Green Goblin. He could be very persuasive in these situations to get people on his side. That was part of his businessman background. Obviously was not the scientist portion. That definitely, though, speaks to Peter, because they are both scientists. So having that, and having the memeable moment called back to right here, where he says he's something of a scientist himself, to our new Peter, really, pretty much, I would have to say that this movie just smacked on so many levels right up to that point that I was just so smitten with it. And then when they were introducing the fact that, okay, this is going to send them back and kill them, we need to fix that. That was where it kind of was like, okay, I already know what's going to happen. I know what's the future for this, but honestly, I gotta say, man, I was like, I don't really care. It's almost like they were inviting it onto themselves at that point, because they were like, we could just walk away from this again, but nope, here we are again, and we're just gonna be like, but we gotta help them, we gotta save them. Well, they were already dead before they came here, so you're not sending them back. Well, what are you gonna do? You're gonna send these people back, you're gonna redeem them, but they're still going back to a situation where because they were literally taken, it said, snatched right out as they were dying. So what a redeemed Norman Osborn is going to go back to right before the glider hits him and get the glider hitting him? A redeemed Doc Ock is going to go back and realize that the building is crushing down on top of him and he's not going to make it? How is that a good ending for these villains who were redeemed? They all, as far as we've been told, not just lost in battle to Spider-Man, but were killed. Yo, what's up, Cuzzo? How's it going? We're talking Spider-Man No Way Home right now. I just watched it this morning, and this is a spoiler review with, we're currently up to the part where, they're deciding whether or not to save these multiversal people or send them home. Which, to me, send them home was the obvious option, because you're going to try to save these people at the moment of their death just to redeem them for that few seconds they're going to be still alive when you send them back to their universe. I mean, yeah, it's a nice sentiment, but literally most of these characters are going right back to their moment of their death. So what are you redeeming? You're not helping them in any way, shape, or form. They're not going to go back and all of a sudden be like, oh, well, the building is no longer crushing me now that I feel better, now that I'm a better person. I mean, it was most assuredly a plot device. And in my personal opinion, not the most well thought through plot device, but I guess it held that story together enough to make the rest of the viewing definitely enjoyable. By the end, having everything that happened play out did kind of make more sense. There was a lot of levity there, but there was a lot of very down, low, depressed moments, very dark moments, which was good. It played out well. And then you had your action scenes, which are just explosive, and the mirror universe scenes, which were colorful and just bright and everything going on. I mean, it really did. It pulled through, I thought, on every promise that they had made for it. And right when you're like, okay, so now what's going to happen? Because all these guys are gone bad. He sent away the only chance to stop them and said, don't do anything until you hear from me. And he's got no way to stop these guys now other than his own powers. He doesn't have a cube or anything to stop everything. And he's just sent all that away. And now, what does he do? Where does he go from there? Well, that's when everything falls apart for him. That's when it's revealed who has been the bad guy all along, which, again, no big surprise, Green Goblin. And that's when Spider-Man's life just gets torn apart. And you're sitting there like, oh my God, what's he going to do? And it just kind of... It kind of starts to really pull at them heartstrings as you start to see all this destruction, and you just know that something bad is coming. And then when the building is getting blown up, and yeah, he shields everything, you know that May is gone, and they just brought it out. And then they got to hit you with the Uncle Ben line. They got to hit you with the Uncle Ben. You know, they got to pull in that with great power comes great responsibility. It just punches you right in the fucking gut. And you're just sitting there crying as you're watching it, right? And then it just kind of ends. And you're like, what? And now you switch over to the others, and they're waiting, and it's like, you guys still have the box. You guys could have stopped any of this. You're sitting there on the box because he said to wait for a call, but you could have stopped any of this. Now Aunt May is dead. All this has happened. Blah, blah. You guys could have stopped it, and you're getting even more and more pissed, right? All right. So then you get through as they're looking, and you realize again that Ned is starting to get the power. He can open portals. So he really starts thinking Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and he opens a portal, and all of a sudden there's a Spider-Man standing in an alley, and you're like, that's not Tom Holland though. You just tell by the gait, you can tell by the stature of the body and everything. It's definitely not Tom Holland. And in walks Andrew Garfield, and you're just like, you knew it was coming again, but it's just the fan service of it. And then when he starts realizing what's going on with the multiple dimensions and string theory, and he's the one who was the much more technical of the Peter Parkers. He was much more. They all had their science thing, but his was much more the theoretical type sciences and stuff like that. So it really is cool to see him applying that knowledge here as our Spider-Man in this multiverse. And the way that he, through the rest of the movie, ends up cracking a lot of jokes and just being really on point with a lot of his things and associating, you know, the other Spider-Men as his brothers and things like that, really kind of brings everything down to that family level and really hits you in the feels again. They definitely like doing that. And then when he brings open the second one and out steps Peter Parker, Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, and you're just standing there like, again, you knew it was coming, but the fan service of the whole thing, just seeing him step out, hearing him talk, you're just like, you're back to that, you know, younger person watching this back in the day, you know, watching the movie back in the day when it came out, and just loving the whole thing the whole time. I know I did anyways, just sitting here watching it. Marvel definitely has their finger on the pulse here because they know that by doing this, they're opening up their revenue stream in so many ways, because there's going to be so many people like myself who watched the older movies, who were, you know, around while all of it was coming out, and we watched it, and we're going to now want to watch it again. And they could re-release toys and all that stuff from these things, and we're all going to want to buy it again. And because, again, like me, I like showing this kind of stuff to my kids. I'm going to show this kind of stuff to my kids, and what's going to happen? You get them into it, they're going to want to get the stuff. They're going to want to buy more stuff. Marvel's got their hands on the pulse. They know what to do. They know how to hook you in. Because then it also says right there, now you got these little ones. Now they're wanting to see the first 5 Spider-Man movies. They're wanting to see the tie-in things that came into this that they don't know about. You know, they weren't around for, or it wasn't really something that was something they liked at that particular age when they were maybe a little bit younger. But now they're a little bit older. They're starting to understand this. They're starting to like this kind of stuff. They're probably hearing a lot of other kids in school talk about these movies, and really kind of a lot of focus is going on to what's going on. The zeitgeist is really filled with Marvel right now. So it definitely is something. So bringing all of that nostalgia and that fan service into it definitely does help. It makes people be like, oh, wow, I remember that. I need to go back and watch that. Or, oh, wow, I remember that. I need to, you know, show that to my kids or what have you. You know, it depends on how it hits you. But definitely, I think a lot of resurgence is going to be happening again. I have heard there's been rumors about that there could be an Amazing Spider-Man 3 being produced somewhere, where we would see Andrew Garfield come back to reprise the role to finish out that trilogy. And then it would, and that there definitely is another part of Spider-Man MCU version coming out in the future, and it is supposed to follow Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and going forward, his things with nobody knowing who he is and everything. And obviously, they left that little Easter egg in at the end, where we're getting that little peek into what could be happening. But we'll be getting to some more of those breakdowns as we get through. So now we've got our two old school or legacy or whatever you want to call our multiversal Spider-Men here, and they're with our protagonists, our main protagonists, other friends, but still they need to search out and find the Peter from our universe. And they talk about where they would go to sit, and each one is talking about these grand, beautiful things. And of course, Peter is definitely, although it's really weird because for the first two movies, and I am just as guilty of this as everyone else, I beat Peter up, right? I beat him up for having the tech suit from Tony, for taking all the Happy's help, for taking all of this one's help. He was always taking help from the others. He was never being the lead character. He was always linked to, well, in this one, wow. When he did step up, when everything happened and it just kind of broke him, you can kind of see where his thoughts and his fears may have lain. But at the same time, when he really does take off there and he starts allowing himself to really lead things and say that he doesn't need another mentor telling him what to do, when Aunt May is dead and has told him about the power and the responsibility, when he meets up with the other Spider-Men and they find out that they all shared that Uncle Ben or Aunt May moment, that it definitely does open up his mind and his heart to what's really important here. And that is helping to heal the multiverse, but he also does want to heal these criminals still to honor Aunt May. And I have a little bit, and maybe there is a little bit of nihilist in me, and that's what the cause of this thing is. But for sure, I do believe that it would definitely be a more fortuitous thing if he had just kind of snapped everything closed at that point and said, you know what, there's been enough death and destruction, we're done here. But of course, he has to try to honor Aunt May at this point, so he goes forward with his plan. So with the help of Ned and MJ and his two other selves, they all go to take on these 5 criminals from other dimensions that are going to be coming in and trying to stop them. And the fight scene was very good. It really felt like the Lizard and Sandman were really underutilized in the majority of the movie in general. I did like the fact that Clint, when he first came in, tried to help Spider-Man, but then I felt like it wasn't really suiting his character at the end, where he just straight up didn't really seem to care about what was going on. That didn't seem like the Sandman that they had been building up throughout, the Sam Raimi verse, as well as now coming into this, how he was just concerned about getting home to his daughter, and how that was what was most important, and getting healed would help him get there. He just became this kind of crazed monster who just didn't care, and that didn't feel like him. Obviously, the Lizard and everybody, they portrayed the character traits that they had put forth, but I felt that really the Sandman was kind of like, they started him one way and ended him another, but it was in a very odd character arc where he was redeemed at the end, but ended up being more monstrous before redemption than he had been upon coming into the whole thing, which to me was very odd, because usually what you want to see with a character arc is you want to see them go from being bad to being good, and then the redemption. You don't want to see them go from being, he wasn't really, I wouldn't say he was really good, but kind of ambivalent at the beginning and just caring about his own things, to then being a worse kind of almost straight up monster for a time, before suddenly getting the cure and then being like, oh wait, no, okay, everything's good. That kind of felt very much an odd choice of how to go about that character arc for him. But I guess in its own way it worked. Doc Ock stepping up and everything, that was definitely good. Norman getting the cure, and obviously Spider-Man kind of like first beating him down before giving him the cure at the very last second when it looked like he was going to kill him, really did kind of knock home. But of course he had to get that one little last thing in of stabbing Spider-Man as Goblin, before Peter finally did put him down properly. But it just, again, it was more of a, things got worse and then suddenly better, instead of things got progressively a little bit better. And I thought that was a weird way to end it, especially being how now they're going to send him back to a fate that, had they just ended him, captured him and ended him without doing that, it would have sent him back to a fate that he would have been ambivalent to begin with. I just felt it was a little bit too contrived. But the other the redemption arcs really did work. I liked that we got to see the older Spider-Men in their costumes and fighting along Tom and everything. It really was a very good, down-to-earth movie with a lot of superpowers and shit. So definitely a good, worthwhile watch for almost anyone within the Marvel fan base, whether it be comic book or movie, and even has enough of a broad spectrum that it can hit for people who might not know so much about Marvel. There's a lot in here that you can get and understand that may make you want to go back and check out some of the older stuff to really see what was going on over there back when. But it definitely does make it a lot more of a worthwhile pursuit to check out. When we got to the full post-credit scene, so I'm not talking about the mid-credit right yet. I want to cover the post-credit scene. Oh wait, we didn't get to the actual ending. Well, obviously, the spell ends up being cast and nobody knows who he is. And I do have some questions there as well, because obviously, I understand nobody knows who he is, but what does that mean? I mean, what about bank records, and what about birth certificates and things like that? Does all that just disappear? Is he no longer a person? If so, how the hell did he end up renting that apartment when he had no when he has no background or anything? So that kind of left a lot of questions for me, how this spell actually worked to make everyone actually totally forget about him. But regardless, it seems like he did connect with MJ again, so maybe in the future they can get back together, and he can reveal who he is and who they once meant to one another at some point in the future. I don't know if we'll see that. I don't know if this means that Ned now doesn't know that he can use magic, and also if he does know and Doctor Strange knows, how do they know? Because the only reason why they know each other is because of Spider-Man and everything. So, like, I kind of got a little bit too contrived at the end with that, of trying to figure out who is what and where and why and when. But other than that, yeah, it was a very good movie, and just basically having the trailer for Multiverse of Madness be the post-credit scene, I thought was kind of a cop-out. But the mid-credit scene I did like, where you see Eddie at the bar drinking, and you hear Venom and everything, and they're trying to go, and then when obviously this takes place concurrent to the fight going on, but Eddie never made his way there. Nobody really knew to look for him. He was obviously just pulled there because something about Venom or somebody knew about who Spider-Man was. Maybe that Eddie Brock knows that Spider-Man is Peter Parker from that universe, and got brought to our universe. We don't know. We haven't seen a Spider-Man in that universe as of yet, but that doesn't mean anything. So we could see a lot of different things happen here with that. But I think the most interesting aspect is the fact that somehow a spore from Venom got left behind. So that could mean that even though Eddie and Venom got brought back to the Sony universe or whatever that is, it still could definitely mean that we could be seeing a form of Venom in the Marvel universe. Now, whether that means this Venom will be a black suit story, so Spider-Man will interact with it, and then we will get him trying to divest himself from black suit, and therefore we will see it evolve into the Venom symbiote when it leaves him and finds this world's Eddie Brock. Or possibly we could see it be used, since a lot of things in the MCU that have been deemed extraterrestrial have been used to assist S.H.I.E.L.D. and S.W.O.R.D. and stuff. There is definitely the possibility that we could see the symbiote get picked up by one of those groups and then used as the Agent Venom symbiote. So we could actually see Agent Venom coming into the MCU here by that post-credit scene. I'm not sure which they're going to go with. I think either could be just as possible, to be honest. I think the next thing they're going to need to do with Tom Holland is they're going to need to rebuild him with his Peter Parker and everything, is rebuild him back from scratch. So we're going to see that down on his luck Peter that people are used to seeing in their origin story. The funny thing they did with this particular thing is typically what people are used to is seeing a Spider-Man or a Batman or a whatever origin story within that 90-minute to hour and a half, or 90-minute to 2.5 hour or so time frame. This was a 3-movie origin story to get us to where Tom Holland's Spider-Man is to the point where we are used to seeing him. The down on his luck kind of guy in the city, the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man who's not an intergalactic superhero, who isn't friends with Tony Stark, who isn't, who hasn't hung out with the Hulk and Thor and this one, that one, and the other one, and done all these cool things in space. He knows he's done it. None of the rest of the world's going to know. Nobody can remember. So this is going to be a good way to see him try to re-interact with these people and find that connection once more, but on a totally different level, with a totally different way of becoming their friends. And him having some knowledge already about them that they don't even know. So how is he going to deal with that? This could be very interesting. Or with the multiverse coming through, is this eventually just going to be shattered and everything will be put back so that the people who know and the people who didn't know don't know, and we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll get a Civil War type situation where they need to actually register once again, but this time, it will be fully brought up of who is who and what is what. There's a lot of possibility, and I do love that Marvel is very open to working with both sides of the house, not just the comics, but the movies as well, to make sure that everything ties together in a very good way so that it appeals to people who are hardcore comic fans, but also appeals to that wider audience to bring more people in, and also to just enjoy these good superhero movies that I think a lot of us have been looking for a good way to get out of the doldrums that have been around lately. I know for me, this was definitely a good way to spend my morning. We are still very much deep entrenched into March, which is TBI Awareness Month, and I am a multiple TBI survivor. So this definitely was a good way for me to escape from that for a while and kind of chill my brain for a bit. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. You will, if you notice the ticker down in the bottom, see that every Wednesday we will be doing a live on these 3 streams. It will be here on Facebook, over here on YouTube, and over here on Twitch all at the same time. Feel free to come in, tell your friends, check us out. Don't forget, the link tree will be posted for those of you who are not already. There will be just a moment while I get silly here and get the link that I need. For anyone who's not already, here we go. Copy and paste and chat. All right. So that should go up on Oz Opinions show and on Oz Opinions on YouTube. Obviously, it won't go up on Facebook because obviously if you're watching this on Facebook, you already know how to connect to me on Facebook. Linktree is to get you to my socials so you can hang out with me on my other socials and find out when I go live. These lives will be every Wednesday at noon. I will be reviewing different movies, series, or anime. We'll be hanging out, chatting, and talking. Later on today, I will be going live on my Transcended by Ozzy channel. That is my medical marijuana related channel. If that's something you're interested in, you can check me out later today. That's going to be between probably about 3:30. I think I'll be going live for that. So that's going to be between probably 3:30 and 4:30 at the longest, because we do have scouts tonight. So that's not going to be really long, but tomorrow you can look forward to our regular live at 6 p.m. on that channel. And as for looking forward to more content here, just go over to YouTube and like, subscribe, and click the notification icon so you get notified anytime I put out that new content, and you guys will have all the content you can ever want to see. And I'll talk to you all later. Ozzy out. Bye, guys. Have a great